Hi, everyone. I'm Alexis Williams, co-founder of Business Skills for Health Professionals, and welcome to the Beyond Clinical podcast. In this podcast, I'll be interviewing health professionals from diverse backgrounds who've moved into unconventional roles beyond clinical. We'll be hearing their stories and tips and hope this inspires you to pursue unique career paths. This is episode 28 of the podcast, and I'd like to introduce my guest, Anna Busenburg. Anna, can you say hello to the audience?
Yeah, hi. It's wonderful to see you all today.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. So before we get started, I want to share a little bit about Anna's background. So Anna is a dietitian. She's also with a certified specialty in pediatrics, and also a certified lactation counselor, and a dedicated registered dietitian with over a decade of experience in clinical nutrition. From 2011 to 2024, she specialized in neonatal and pediatric nutrition, focusing on maternal and infant health. After nearly 14 years in clinical care, Anna transitioned to a community-focused role, now serving as Nutrition Affairs Manager for the American Dairy Association Mideast. Anna earned her undergraduate degree and completed her dietetic internship at Purdue University in Indiana. Throughout her career, she has been passionate about combating nutrition misinformation, particularly regarding maternal and pediatric health. She's committed to providing evidence-based education that empowers families to make informed dietary choices, fostering healthier generations. Beyond her professional role, Anna remains actively engaged with the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. She contributes to multiple committees, including the Pediatric Nutrition Practice Group and the Committee for Lifelong Learning, furthering her dedication to advancing the field of nutrition. Anna's expertise, combined with her commitment to public education, continues to shape the conversation around maternal and child nutrition, ensuring that science-based information reaches both healthcare professionals and the broader community. So thank you so much, Anna, for joining me. I'd love to hear in your words a little bit about your health professional origin story and your career journey.
Yeah, definitely. It has been kind of fun to think back on how things did start as a student, right? Like going to school. I had lots of friends that ended up kind of transferring into dietetics. I was one that had declared my double major at the beginning of college and stuck with it the whole way through. But I went to Purdue for the goal of becoming a dietitian and completing my dietetics undergrad. And then I wanted to do something with sports. I was very active as a child and growing up. So I have a dual bachelor's in nutrition, fitness, and health as well. So it was fun to be able to combine some of those health and kinesiology classes along with the standard dietetic coursework. And so, yeah, after completing school, I was looking for a job. And at that time, um, at least where we were living in Indiana, and really across the country in the United States, it was kind of rough job wise in
Mhm.
that early 2000s to get a job. And so I knew that I needed to start working. And so a clinical position is one that opened. And I decided, well, I need to make some money. So we're going to start there. So it wasn't my first idea of what I thought I'd do. I really thought I would go more of a sports nutrition route. But there weren't a lot of those jobs, and this opportunity arose, and we just kind of went with it. And so at that time, I worked at a smaller institution and covered a lot, everything from adult CICU all the way down to NICU, labor and delivery, pediatrics, and then outpatient feeding team too. So a little bit of everything, which was a really good starting point to kind of get an idea of what goes on in clinical. But then that led to, as you were mentioning earlier, an interest and a passion for pediatrics specifically, and then working in the NICU. So I worked at two different NICU units. One in Indiana was the largest in the state, and then another one in Ohio as well. That was a very well-respected institution. So those were great opportunities. I loved it. It was just funny because, like I said, when I went to college, I didn't think that's where I'd end up finding so much joy and excitement for a long time. And then I was kind of equally as surprised when I decided to kind of pivot and transition away from that role. Too, it's a little scary when you've been in something for so long and you feel
Hmm.
comfortable with it, but an exciting leap as well to kind of include other talents and skills and interests that I had in kind of a different way that had a broader, I would say a broader reach with that community focus versus being so niche um, in a NICU environment.
Yeah, that's super interesting how you kind of took all those learnings and skills and, apply it to transitioning into the dairy education role. So,
Yeah.
yeah, can you tell me any more about like how that transition went? Do you think there's anything that's kind of contributed to your success in making that transition?
Yeah. So I think one of the big things throughout my time in clinical, I always kind of felt and joked that like I was a decent clinical dietitian. I did a good job. It was something I did enjoy. I liked the numbers. I liked, especially in peds and the NICU, you see changes happen really fast. So it's very
Hmm.
rewarding, right? To like make an adjustment and then you see a baby grow, or you make an adjustment and you see a lab value, normalize or something like that. So that's rewarding. But I also had other interests and other skills that kind of lay outside of that typical clinician role, including some public speaking, writing, things like that. And so throughout that time that I worked in clinical, I always tried to pursue projects, opportunities, volunteer, be involved kind of within those things that I found just naturally interesting. And then that I had, some skills and talents in that just brought me some joy. So I was always doing some of those things. So think that really led and gave me the confidence and even additional skills to pursue kind of this career pivot when that time came. Because the role that I stepped into with the American Dairy Association here in Ohio was more of a nutrition communications role. So a public health component, community, nutrition focus, but then also some communications work, which is what I had kind of done. I joke like for fun on the side. Like
Hmm.
I, for a while, had a blog that I maintained quite routinely, but now I get to be paid to do some of those things that I had enjoyed before, but not necessarily had it been my,
Hmm.
full-time job. So it was neat to be able to have some of these talents and skills that I did cultivate, maintain, kind of on the side, finally be able to, I guess, blossom and grow and be able to be utilized to their full capacity in this newer position.
I think that's really interesting, and I'm so glad you kind of talked about how, you were working in maybe a traditional role, or
Yeah,
definitely a traditional role, and it was things that you did, either as part of your job, like things you got involved with,
right,
and things you did on the side for fun, even I'm sure some of the things you were involved with, like the academy and professional development, like those all really contributed to you getting
right.
that experience that you kind of needed to make that pivot. Because I think sometimes everyone just gets so worked up about like, well, I've only been in clinical. I can't go into
Yeah,
something different because I don't
right.
have all the experience. So I love that you kind of found that in a unique way.
Yeah, and to not sell yourself short that you
Hmm.
probably do have some of those skills, right? And experiences. It's just pausing and thinking, okay, if I have an interest that lies outside of my clinical role, like maybe I can find a way to volunteer to, kind of incorporate and maybe grow a little these skills so that when it comes time to look for this new job or to kind of expand my toolbox and to go out and find this new position that I, feel confident that I can pitch that to that future employer, right? That like I have these skills, I have some of this experience. I, with, my perspective, can bring that to your team and make it better. So yes, I think pursuing those interests and talents, and then also having the confidence to know that you can do it and you can be
Hmm.
successful at it.
Yeah, that's amazing. What has been the role of mentors or coaches and like your community along your journey?
Oh, so I think so much, right? Again, um, as I was kind of reflecting on that thought of just people and that community. I mean, the dietitian community isn't that large, right? Like,
Hmm.
I don't know. I always chuckle when you meet someone, you're like, oh, I met someone else as a dietitian. It's kind of fun, right? But two, that network and that community really has, for me, been supportive, obviously, along this journey, but then also helped secure, I would say, each and every job I've ever obtained. Um, And so even thinking back to my very first job, I, was applying to this clinical position. I wasn't really like super pumped about it, but I knew it would be a job. But my college advisor, right, that person that had walked with me through those 4 years of school was working at that hospital where I applied and knew me, right? So she could like vouch for me for the manager that I was going to have. Also, then looking at my second position, I had gotten an email about the job posting from my dietetic internship director, and she had
Mm.
forwarded it on to graduates, right? Being like, this job is available. This might be a good fit for some of you. And then I took that connection and applied for that position. Even the third job that I had that brought me to Ohio, I had had a friend that had known the department director and had given me her contact information, and I had reached out and kind of patiently waited for something to open, right, that I was
Mhm.
specifically looking for. So that connection through a colleague, right, helped
Mhm.
facilitate that opportunity. And then even my current job was really obviously my own skills, right, but two connections with actually an internship preceptor from
Mhm.
way back when I was in college, works for dairy, and I know vouched for me and put in a good word as well. So it's amazing how just that community and those connections really help to kind of help you navigate your way through your
Mhm.
career, right? Like supporting you, writing you letters of recommendation for you, just being involved and invested, I guess, in, my success and your success, right? Like that's what I think really helps and is kind of a unique thing in the world of
Mhm.
dietetics.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how it kind of spanned across a number of years for you, like
Oh,
staying in
definitely.
touch. And I think
Yeah,
that's really important is like keeping in touch with those past connections, nurturing, the connections. And yeah, because you never know how they're going to lead to something, like lead to an
right.
opportunity. And that's
Yes,
so important. So, I'm always encouraging clients to kind of to do that. And, if you're working somewhere, like make sure you connect with people maybe on LinkedIn or
yeah,
whatever is the strategy that they use in that environment, because it's nice to be able to reach out at a later date if, there's a need or if they can reach out to you as well. You can kind of pay it
yeah,
forward. That's great.
definitely.
Did you
Yeah.
run into any kind of major knowledge gaps, I guess, coming from like clinical into, like nutrition marketing area?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, oh, well, yes, quite a few. As in just like my knowledge when it came to communications work and like you were specifically mentioning marketing, like a consumer lens on something versus, more of like a health professional viewpoint on whatever materials you're creating is obviously somewhat different. So
Hmm.
yeah, my knowledge there was very entry level, which
Hmm.
again was a very humbling experience to kind of make that shift, right? Of going from an area where you were considered very much an expert, right, on this, area that you've
Hmm.
worked in for 10 plus years to now going into an area that you're like, oh, I'm definitely a novice at some of this. And so I think being open and willing to learn, right? To understand
Hmm.
that there are certain things that I don't know right now, but I can definitely ask the question or following up and not being too proud to ask, right? Like, and then taking notes when you get the question answered. So hopefully next time you don't have to ask it again. You can refer to your notes if you don't remember. But I think just being able to embrace that. It can be kind of scary, but at the same time too, it can be kind of fun to have that chance to kind of learn and kind of start
Hmm.
to expand that base. And kind of looked at it as an opportunity to take this knowledge I have and I'm kind of pivoting into this new space. Not that all this other knowledge doesn't matter, right? It's more like now I'm going to expand, right? Like a growing opportunity
Yeah.
versus more of that versus a negative lens of being like, oh, I don't know. I'm new. I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah.
This is hard, but to try to look at it as a chance to, oh, hey, improve upon and grow what I do know. I think too, obviously, a shift from a clinical pace of life is very different than when you leave that, especially when you're in an ICU. It's just you're busy all the day at work. It's a very like get to all the patients, write all the notes, and then you're
Hmm.
leaving and you're on call until 10 or you work on the weekends. It's just like, it's a
Hmm.
lot. And you're always kind of thinking about it, trying to make sure that oh, did I write that TPN correctly? And you just, are just wondering about that even in off hours. Not that did you write it correctly, but how's my patient doing? Like when I go in tomorrow,
Yeah.
what are they going to look like? So that shift too, I think is kind of hard, is to shift away from that and then be fine with just slower pace. Like I don't,
Hmm.
my project's still going to be there tomorrow in, my
Hmm.
current role. No, it'll be fine. So I think some of that is different too. So not only trying to learn new things, but also then just adjusting to kind of a different pace of your day.
Yeah, totally. I really enjoy what you said about just that belief in yourself around the ability to learn the
Yeah.
things you need to know. And I think that does really, I like from speaking with a lot of health professionals who've made transitions, I think that probably is one of the fundamental things that maybe you need to have is like a bit of a confidence and belief in yourself that you can take a certain bank of knowledge, but learn a new set of skills and
Yeah.
kind of grow upon that. And not feeling intimidated by that, even though it can be intimidating.
Oh, definitely.
So yeah, I think that's a really important one. So thank you for sharing that. So what do you love most about your current work?
I would love to say it's probably the variety of things that I get to do. Not that my other job, I mean, there's maybe some variety, but a lot of it was rounding and being present at bedside and writing notes, right? So then shifting now into where it is a little more independent in the sense of I
Mhm.
get to set my schedule. I don't have to, abide by everyone else's clock in terms of doing things. And then just the breadth of information and stuff that I get to do is a lot. I'm not just writing notes, right? Like I get to help create, like you mentioned, marketing materials,
Mhm.
or I get to write and do blog posts or other writing endeavors. I get to go and visit students at academic institutions and give presentations. I get to go to community events for partnership opportunities and, meet people in my community as well as travel around the state and get to network with people, right? Attending conferences, stuff like that. So that is just really kind of fun to have the
Mhm.
chance to look at my calendar and be like, what am I doing today? What is today's
Mhm.
focus? What is this project we're going to get done this week? Just because, again, when you leave a clinical position, it's just a little more regimented. So this just is a
Mhm.
little more flexible, accommodating. It gives you a chance to pursue different interests and things, and yeah, work on a variety of different projects.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say, like, are there things that you're kind of focused on your own development right now? Any kind of courses or programs for your where you are now?
Right now, so I would say that one of the biggest things for me in this role, and especially this first year, has kind of been just working to get to know organizations, people in my community. I was kind of in a little bit of a bubble with my last position, just kind of doing that in that very small niche space. And so now having just a larger community focus, there are just more people that kind of fall
Mhm.
in that focus area. So then kind of prioritizing some different organizations, some different committee work, trying to find, again, those like meaningful connections where you can not just go to a conference and stand at a table and be like, hello, this is me and my resources, but also create more of a long lasting relationship with some of these key thought leaders and people who then are maybe pediatricians and go and see all these kids at their practice that I can help empower them with science-based information about dairy foods, right? To then share with their patients and their families. So kind of just as since I'm new in this position, just really taking the time to kind of identify those people, to kind of have a chance to meet them, to, get to work with organizations like WIC and to meet the people that I had maybe worked with at my last job, but not in the same way. So being able to talk with them, see what they need, see what resources we can maybe create for them too, right? And just some of those connections have been, I guess, what I've been focused on. There hasn't been a specific course or anything, but working too on when we've done social media work, we've done some videos, some blog writing, stuff like that. Also be open to feedback with that
Mhm.
too, right? Because I come from a background of a very clinical, scientific focus. I mean, writing like journal articles, right? Where,
Mhm.
just sounds like a stuffy journal. Whereas kind of pivoting that into, okay, what does a consumer facing blog need to read like? Like we
Right.
love some of this information, but how do we put it in a way that is short, concise, but engaging enough that someone wants to take a moment on their phone and read it? So
Hmm.
that's been kind of an interesting but fun challenge and ways to kind of shift and adjust my own, for example, writing style to make it more consumer facing. So just some different ways to kind of think through things, different people to meet has been what I've been doing for the
Hmm.
last little bit and probably plan to do for the
Yeah.
remainder of the year.
No, I think that's a really important first step when you do make a pivot is to
Yeah,
give yourself maybe the time and space to, meet people, connect with people in an organization,
right.
ask all the questions and, kind of not holding back on your questions so that you really can develop a broad understanding of what it is like you do, but also the larger organization and what like
Yeah.
their kind
And
of
then
goals are.
how can we work together? Like what are
Yeah.
we, what can we work with? And maybe it's something that we haven't ever done before. So that's kind of the fun
Hmm.
thing too, is obviously being a new person, filling that role is had the opportunity to come up with some creative ideas. Like what would that look like?
Yeah.
What could we do together?
Absolutely. Oh, that sounds fun. If there's one thing that you could share with your early career self, what would that be?
Oh goodness. I would probably just remind myself that, even if you feel insecure and competent about something, that you're smart and you're strong and you've been trained well and you got this. Um, I think that at times there have just been experiences that have led to, just questioning your own skills, a little bit of
Hmm.
imposter syndrome, self-doubt,
For
where
sure.
you like, I know what I'm doing, but at the same time, the people around you or a person or something is telling you that maybe you don't. And so then you're like, oh gosh, do I not know what's going on?
Hmm.
Like, do I not have these skills? And so I think that's common, but I think remembering and just knowing, no, you got this. Like you have a great education to fall back on. You have the skills to look information up if you don't know what it is. You
Hmm.
have, and appreciate the people that are in your corner that are supporting you and encouraging you, and rely on those friends. I think that is very valuable
Yeah,
going through life.
absolutely. Yeah. I think that kind of echoes the earlier point around like just having that confidence in yourself to know that you
Yeah,
can you can find what you need and the support that you need, which is great.
yeah.
So what advice would you give to any listener who's really looking to make a transition, maybe from doing something more clinically focused to a career outside of that?
I think that if that's really what you want to do, that you should go after it and not give up. I think that initially when I was considering stepping away from a clinical role, I, for some reason, had this thought that it would be like stepping down or stepping away,
Mm,
like again, at least where I came from, like this clinical people were the ones that like did the direct patient care. They were like the
yeah,
top dietitian. And somehow that like misconception that if I stepped away from that, like it couldn't be that. But at the same time, too, recognizing my role and what I'm able to do is just different skills. It might not be those exact. Am I able to write as speedy of a TPN today as I could a year ago? Maybe not. But I have other skills and other things
mm,
that are really valuable. So I think jumping in and going for it and pursuing that dream that you have is always worth it, and that isn't a step down or that doesn't take away, if you have a different kind of goal than maybe some other clinicians. That's okay. Like you need to be true to yourself and what you want to do with your
yeah,
career.
absolutely. Oh, I love that. I didn't ask my first question, so I'm gonna slide it in now. It's sort
Okay.
of a fun, unrelated question before we kind of wrap up. Um, yeah, so do you enjoy podcasts? And if so, what are some of your favorite ones?
So I do enjoy podcasts. I've listened to them for years, a whole variety of them. Now you're probably going to laugh. They're not a ton of nutrition focused podcasts. Um, but I have a few favorites. I love something where I'm learning something. And I think just because of work, I've shied away from some nutrition focused podcasts all the time.
Hmm.
But Freakonomics, 99% Invisible, Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. crime junkie. I mean, a whole smattering. We go everywhere. We go from like true crime to like, fun political facts, like the whole spectrum
Hmm.
of
Cool.
podcasts I do love. It's just a nice, escape from
Yeah,
life sometimes, putting your headphones and
absolutely.
listen.
Absolutely. No, those are some interesting sounding ones. I'll have to check them out. So awesome.
It's a
Well,
very
yeah.
smattering,
Yeah, a good mix for
broad.
sure. Well, yeah, thank you so much. And I hope everyone enjoyed hearing from Anna today and you're feeling inspired. To stay informed of our latest podcasts and programs, you can sign up for our monthly newsletter and learn more about our services at www.skills4hps.com. I'll link this in the show notes as well. And if you do love the show, please consider rating it, reviewing it, and sharing it with a friend. So, yeah, thank you again so much, Anna. It was great speaking with you.
Yes, you as well. Thanks for having me, Alexis.
Thanks. Bye.